Some liner stories are glamorous, others patriotic. The story of Germany's Cap Arcona is neither. It is as bizarre as it is tragic and one of the great maritime disasters ever, and one we really felt as producers that it needed to be told. Launching in 1927, Cap Arcona was a luxury liner serving the South American routes to countries more friendly to a post-World War I Germany. The vessel was known as the Queen of the South Atlantic. She was Germany's answer to Cunard's Great Fleet, which included Titanic's surviving sister ships, Britannic and Olympic. Cap Arcona was equally a floating palace aimed at the rich and powerful. But when the Nazis came to power, her fate took a strange turn. In 1940, propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels commandeered Cap Arcona not as a troop ship, but as a movie set. She was to star as the Titanic in a German propaganda film, twisting the 1912 disaster into a story where British officers were portrayed as cold, incompetent villains. The production itself turned into a nightmare. Air raids repeatedly interrupted filming, the cast and crew were disillusioned and often drunk. The budget spiralled and the director, Herbert Selpin, made the fatal mistake of openly blaming the Nazis for the chaos. He was arrested, days later found dead in his cell, hanged in what was almost certainly a staged suicide. The film was never released in Germany, but then the war was turning and Goebbels didn't want such bleak imagery on screens as the country collapsed around him. But Cap Arcona's real tragedy came at the very end of the war. In May 1945, she was crammed with thousands of concentration camp prisoners, forced aboard in horrific conditions as the Nazis fled advancing Allied forces. As is common in the bloody madness and fog of war, various lines of communication did not get passed on to the Allies, their advancing forces, and the British RAF. And in the good old tradition of, sorry chaps, the old communication problem, when chasing down the retreating Nazis in the Bay of Lübeck, RAF Typhoon fighter bombers spotted Cap Arcona. She was a sitting duck. They launched rockets and gunfire. Cap Arcona exploded into flames. Between 5,000 and 8,000 prisoners from 28 nations, including Russians, Poles, French, Dutch, Canadians and Americans, died in the inferno or they drowned in the freezing Baltic. It was one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history, and the bitter irony that it was inflicted not by the Nazis, but by tragic Allied error. Even worse, it happened just 4 days before Germany's surrender. For decades after, the Baltic kept giving up the reminders of the disaster. Human remains were washing ashore as late as the 1970s. It was a grim reminder, an echo of that final act of the war. The Cap Arcona was once built as a symbol of German pride, but her legacy is one of exploitation and horror and heartbreaking loss. A cursed ship from the start, and remembered today as a floating tomb of thousands